Can you see yourself becoming a Muslim? Something is stopping you from being a Muslim right now. So we did a video last year, Dad. We didn't even know if we were going to use it, but then we put it out there and people seem to have liked it by the grace of God. We've had a lot of people saying that they liked you a lot, far more than talking about me, but I'm okay with that.
That's just not true, John.
They were saying the dad's very eloquent. They said good father-son relationship. We had lots of this sort of feedback, and we didn't expect that.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Well, it's so long ago, it feels like another lifetime. So much has changed since then.
Like what?
Well, I've converted to Islam.
Okay, stop there. Stop there. That's it. That's what the viewers have been waiting for. Tell us more.
No, John,
This amazing news.
Forgive me, but
this amazing news.
I am being playful. I'm trying to duplicate the surprise when you announced that you had converted to Islam. I thought I'd return the favour.
Okay. In our last video, we talked about your reaction to me becoming Muslim. The thumbnail on the video was that when you came to Islam, then I was terrified. You know, you mentioned, yeah?
Why on earth should one be terrified because one's son has adopted a religious conviction that's somehow a little bit different from the status quo?
You said it, not me. And you know, Dad, in the last video, we had an interesting conversation where initially you talked about surrender. You said, you know, you have some problems surrendering. And I mentioned that, Dad, the word Islam means surrender. And you said,
it's a beautiful word, John.
So are there good things that you've seen about Islam in my life? Have you seen positive things about Islam which you yourself like?
I think there's a ton of things about Islam, John, which I like, which are admirable, which I think serve humanity. We did a video on Ramadan. That's a particularly beautiful activity, but I would suggest that Ramadan is a huge act of empathy. Isn't that its intention, that you're actually identifying with those that can't afford, those that can't do, those that can't eat? That seems to me, on many levels, a beautiful thing to do.
And you fasted. You fasted for the whole day.
I fasted.
How are you finding the fast?
To be honest, John, I'm feeling perfectly okay. But then I've been fasting, as you know, intermittent fasting for many years now. So that is more or less routine. What is unusual is not drinking. I've come so close to, you know, shall we have a coffee? Grabbing that bottle of water. Islam has this incredible sense of community, and I think things like their sense of community is perhaps tremendous for health and well-being. It's tremendous for longevity, having that sense of security from the community, but also having that sense of security from the notion that somehow this is God's will, this is God's plan, and that you're part of that. So this shifts a lot of the stress, I think, out of life.
But that bit about community, are you talking about another thing as well, which is a sense of purpose? A sense of meaning?
Sense of purpose and meaning, which, let's face it, the kind of culture that we're used to living in tends to be devoid of. You could talk about Islamic modesty. You're wearing a hat. I accuse you of being a pigeon fancier from the northeast. But in fact, this is an indication. It's a symbol of your modesty. And the modesty isn't just about appearance, but it's a modesty of personality. I find all of that very attractive, very beautiful.
You picked up a lot
from you.
Rather observative.
You're a good teacher, John.
I remember when we prayed. You tried praying during Ramadan, didn't you? We've broken our fast, and now we're going to pray the prayer, which is the prayer at the time of sunset, which is called Maghrib. Allahu Akbar.
I think I hit on a process where I felt as if I was making contact
with God.
I suppose so, or with my higher self.
I mean, I guess the Muslim prayer is the whole 5 daily prayers rather than in one place of worship once a week.
That's something which I find very interesting, the notion that your day can be carved up with prayer. You know, looking at it from a productivity point of view, it's a bit of a waste of time. But on the other hand, looking at it from a health and well-being point of view, it's an incredible thing to do, to actually calm down, to de-stress, to refocus, to meditate, to pray, to speak with your purpose, realign with your creator is quite an incredible thing to do.
May even make you more productive, 80-20.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure. Yes,
So,
it is.
I would even say, not the viewers don't really know this, but I know you as a person. I know where you are in your life. I know what you're thinking and the things that are important to you. And
Are you sure, John?
yeah, I am. And I think you surprise me with how well you know me. I surprise you with how well I know you. Yeah.
You've got a good memory.
Yeah. There's one thing you've not mentioned, which is life, death, mortality, and thinking about what happens after life. Is there a life after death? Our society nowadays, atheistic society,
prefers not to talk about it, John. It's difficult to find, but you and I do can talk about it. I tend to find that your community, your friends, the people that I bump in, tend to be serious people. And
my Muslim friends.
Your Muslim friends, yeah. And we can talk about things like life after death or other serious issues. That too, I personally find very encouraging.
Now, having talked about those positive sides in relation to Islam, I would even go as far as to say part of you, part of Bill, part of my dad, maybe not your mind, but your heart, I think, would like to be Muslim. But it sounds like there's part of you that actually longs to,
Can I tell you
longs to surrender.
Can I tell you another little story?
Hang on, well, yeah, if it's on that topic.
It's exactly on that topic. I think what I'm pointing to, there's also fear attached to that kind of exceptionalism.
Fear, but also a longing in some way?
I would imagine, John, if you penetrate those layers, that perhaps we all have this longing, like a fish to return to the ocean. But then there's also this nagging little worldly thing, which is ensuring that you don't.
And tell us if that's true or not. But something is stopping you from being a Muslim right now.
There's a whole lot of questions. For example, Islam believes in life after death, but only under certain circumstances. The Day of Judgment doesn't coincide with a life review, for example. And so that rather than being judged, this is a learning experience. That comes much closer to how I would prefer things to be, rather than, God forbid, I'm judged and that's it. Come to heaven, Bill. No, you're down there. But there's so much evidence out there, and arguably that evidence of near-death experience has actually been proven to be so. In terms of evidence, you perhaps have, I'll tap the table now, you have hard evidence by contrast with.
So you do agree with the table analogy, yeah?
I'm using
just
yours.
Make sure that
I'm
goes in.
Then make sure that goes in. Here, who
Ah.
likes tables.
I know it's made up of electrons and neutrons and
very,
protons
very
and
little
quarks and all
bits
the
of
rest.
matter if you're lucky, only if you observe them.
I don't want to be in that position where I'm sort of critiquing all this stuff. And I think we can explore that in future videos in my plan. So, okay, number one, near-death experience. What else concerns you about Islam?
I am a sort of a son of the hippie period. I'm a son of individualism, intellectual curiosity. I like the pursuit of ideas. I like the pursuit of knowledge. I don't necessarily want to have the law laid down in front of me, even if it is right, if that doesn't sound totally perverse. But at the same time, though, I do have this sort of deep, warm feeling about spirituality, which extends itself to Islam, and I think that feels deep and warm too.
Can you see yourself becoming a Muslim?
I think this part of me is Muslim. I think this part of everybody with any good intention or good faith is Muslim, but there is doctrine attached to it, which I, as a person, as an individual, find it difficult to swallow.
So you've told us the good things you like about Islam. Having seen it, for me, that's the call to prayer. So you talked about Ramadan, you've talked about fasting, you've talked about empathy, you've talked about charity, prayer, the structure, about routine, maybe even increasing productivity. You've talked about potentially the claim of not having to rely on blind faith as being something interesting, but you have question marks about that and how that would work. But you've also raised concerns that you're from a generation which was very independent, the hippie era you called it, and that's typically not a religious generation. Many of those people...
It's a profoundly spiritual generation.
Spiritual, but not religious, you could say, yeah? So
Correct, yeah.
So I think that'd be a fair thing. And I'm not looking to put words in your mouth, because whenever I do, then you'll shut me down. You've even said part of you is Muslim. That's a really interesting comment. I've never heard you say that before. And I think what would be really interesting is to explore those questions, because for me, as a Muslim, I can fully reconcile life after death, the things you talked about, and those points about the subconscious.
That's one of the blessings of being a Muslim, is it not?
Yeah. It's been great chatting to you about these things. genuinely, and let's do the next video soon.
What's actually going through my mind is that on the first video, they thought that Jonathan had this, and I had this really warm feeling going.
Do you know what I said to Dad before we came in? I said, are you going to have another bad mood during filming? Because if you are, then don't do it. I said, no eye rolling and none of that stuff. But they won't notice that. They'll think it's part of our good rapport.